Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Let's just dive right in. Because today, well, we're looking at one of the most bizarre, fascinating, and honestly entirely true stories in human history. We're going to explore how a massive, devastating public health crisis was solved. But not with a medical breakthrough, not with a giant influx of cash, nope. It was solved with a highly orchestrated, incredibly clever psychological trick. This is the story of the Great Potato Heist of 1780s France. So I want you to think about something. What would make a starving population completely reject perfectly good food? I mean, it goes against every human survival instinct, right? But to really get this, we kind of need to travel back to 1780s France. The whole country was gripped by this absolutely terrifying starvation crisis. People are literally dying in the streets, desperately needing calories. But the crazy irony here, they weren't living in some barren wasteland. They were actually surrounded by plenty of food. They just flat out refused to eat it. See, to the French working class at the time, the potato was basically just poisonous pig food. And this wasn't just some, mild distaste. For hundreds of years, people genuinely, deeply believed that eating potatoes caused deadly illnesses. But the biological reality? Completely the opposite. The potato is actually this highly nutritious, calorie-dense superfood. So you've got people starving to death while actively running away from the exact thing that could save their lives. It's wild. Section 1. The Great Potato Ban. Now, this whole anti-potato sentiment, it wasn't just some fringe conspiracy theory whispered in the taverns. Oh no, it went all the way to the top. In a move of just sheer deadpan absurdity, the French Parliament, like the actual official governing body of France, officially banned the cultivation of potatoes. Just think about the logistics of that for a second. A massive government literally outlawed a harmless vegetable. That is exactly how terrified both the population and the authorities were of this life-saving tuber. So let's look at how this deadly paradox actually played out. First, for centuries prior, you have this foundational belief baked into the culture: potatoes equal deadly illness. Second, sometime before 1780, Parliament steps in and validates this totally irrational fear by legally banning their cultivation across the whole country. And then finally, the 1780s hit. A massive starvation crisis absolutely decimates France. The ultimate, perfect solution to this horrific crisis is sitting right there, growing in the dirt, but it is legally forbidden and culturally despised. It is just a completely tragic paradox.
Section 2. The Mastermind Agronomist.
Enter our guy, a mastermind agronomist who was actually commissioned by the King of France himself. Now, he knew the actual science. He knew potatoes were a nutritional superfood, but he was handed an impossible mandate from the crown. How in the world do you convince a starving working class to eat what they are absolutely convinced is poisonous pig food? I mean, you can't just hand out little informational pamphlets, right? You can't just have the king stand up and say, "Hey guys, I promise it's fine, dig in." The psychological obstacle here is essentially a giant brick wall. You are trying to feed a population that is completely terrified of the cure. Logic and reason, totally off the table.
Section 3. The Reverse Psychology Plot.
Okay, so if our agronomist couldn't reason with them using facts, well, he had to completely trick them using human nature. Welcome to what is easily one of the greatest cons in agricultural history. And get this entire mastermind scheme to manipulate the psychology of a whole starving nation, it started with the purchase of a tiny little plot of land. 2. That's it. Just 2 acres. The absolute brilliance here is all in the execution. So, step 1, he plants a bunch of potatoes on those 2 acres. Step 2, he pays these big, armed, intimidating guards to loudly and visibly protect the farm at all costs. Step 3, he secretly tells those exact same guards to accept bribes from the locals. And step 4, he literally just sits back and watches the people steal his crops. It is an absolute masterclass in manufacturing demand.
So why did this actually work? Well, the moment the French working class saw armed guards aggressively protecting a random patch of dirt, their entire perception just instantly flipped. I mean, they immediately assumed that armed guards equaled something incredibly precious and valuable growing there. Suddenly, it wasn't poisonous pig food anymore. No way. It was this exclusive, closely guarded treasure reserved only for the elites.
And here is the ultimate punchline of the whole heist. The agronomist secretly ordered his own guards, and I quote, "accept bribes, do not actually catch anyone trying to steal." It's genius.
He manufactured the scarcity, he provoked the theft, and then he rigged the entire game behind the scenes so the thieves would always win. He literally wanted them to steal the potatoes so they'd go home, cook them in secret, realize they were actually delicious, and, stay alive. Section 4. A revolutionary punchline. As you've probably guessed, the reverse psychology worked amazingly well. The French public, entirely convinced they were pulling off the heist of the century against the crown, started stealing and eating the potatoes in absolute droves. Almost overnight, the potato became wildly popular across the working class. It successfully mitigated the starvation crisis and saved just countless lives. The trick actually saved the country. But let's track this chain of events for a second because the timing is unbelievable. The public starts eating potatoes. The starvation crisis is mitigated, meaning the people finally have their strength back. And immediately after, the French Revolution begins. Yep, right after this incredible public health and nutritional success, which, remember, was orchestrated on behalf of the king, the population finally gets enough calories and energy to rise up and completely overthrow the monarchy. I mean, come on, you really can't write a better twist ending than that. Which brings us to a final thought for this explainer. If an entire starving nation can be tricked into eating the very food that saves them, simply by putting a few armed guards in front of it to create a false sense of exclusivity and value, what else are we being tricked into valuing today? Think about all the manufactured scarcity, the clever marketing, and the perceived value in our modern lives. What is the guarded potato that you are currently chasing? Thanks for exploring this fascinating historical trick with me, and I'll leave you to ponder that question.